Oh, hey there, Brainiac in progress. Quick question. Have you ever tried forming a new habit, like exercising every morning, or reading before bed, or not doom scrolling social media at 2 a.m. while eating cold pizza, standing over the sink, and failed? Repeatedly? Like some kind of motivation challenged goldfish? Well, do not worry, because today we are busting the biggest brain myth since someone said humans only use 10% of their brain, which is like saying cars only use one wheel. Get ready, because we are going full Sherlock on the lie that dopamine is the magic fairy dust of habit formation. Spoiler alert, it is not. It is more like the drama queen of your brain chemistry, screaming every time something shiny happens. So, what is this dopamine thing anyway? People throw it around like confetti at a science parade. Dopamine makes you happy, they say. Dopamine is the motivation chemical, they shout. Dopamine will turn you into a productivity god with abs and $1 billion company, they whisper seductively in self help books. But here is the truth: dopamine is not your reward. It is your brain's weird little hype man. It is not the actual happiness, it is the anticipation of happiness. Think of dopamine like the trailer for a movie. You know those trailers that make a film look like the next Avengers? But then the actual movie is just 2 hours of Ryan Reynolds sighing in a bathrobe? That is dopamine. It hypes you up for something that may or may not deliver. Scientists have figured this out by hooking rats up to tiny brain zappers, which sounds like the plot of a rat-based Marvel origin story, but it is real. They found that dopamine spikes not when the rat gets the cheese, but when the rat sees the signal that cheese is coming. The little furry dude gets jazzed at the idea of cheese, but when he actually eats it, dopamine is like meh. This means your brain gets excited about potential rewards, not actual satisfaction. It is a motivational nudge, not the finish line. Now, here is where it gets juicy, because we have been sold the idea that if you just hack your dopamine, you can instantly become a productivity monster. You will be waking up at 4 a.m., cold, plunging into a tub of regret, and reading 17 books before breakfast. But that is the lie. Dopamine is not going to build your habits. It is not a shortcut to success. It is more like the friend who always says they will help you move, but mysteriously disappears when the boxes show up. If you rely on dopamine alone to form habits, you will end up chasing novelty and quitting every time the excitement wears off, which is about 20 minutes after you buy a new planner. Here is the truth bomb, delivered straight to your frontal lobe with love. Habits are formed not by dopamine hits, but by consistent repetition and identity reinforcement. I know, not sexy, not thrilling, not even mildly sparkly, but it works. Think of habits like brushing your teeth. Nobody is thrilled to brush their teeth. You do not get a dopamine fireworks show for flossing, but you do it because you have tied it to your identity. You are a person who does not want to smell like expired garlic bread. The myth of dopamine being the reward is dangerous because it makes people think that if they are not excited, they are doing it wrong. That if they are not pumped to go to the gym, it must not be for them. But real change happens after the dopamine leaves the chat. It happens in the boring, awkward, uninstagrammable moments where you choose the new behavior simply because you said you would. That is the gritty magic of neuroplasticity. That is how habits are born, in the repetition, not the rush. But wait, dopamine is not evil. It is just misunderstood, like the villain in every Disney movie. You can actually use dopamine intentionally without being ruled by it. Want to make habit formation easier? Start using dopamine to build craving instead of relying on motivation. Here is how. Attach small, enjoyable cues to your new habit, like playing your favorite podcast only when you go for a walk, or lighting a nice smelling candle every time you sit down to write. Your brain begins to associate the cue with pleasure, and dopamine spikes before the habit. That anticipation makes you more likely to follow through. This is called temptation bundling, and it is like bribing your brain with candy, but adult candy, like soothing music or a sense of control. Another dopamine smart move? Use streaks. Not the ones on Snapchat that you forgot about in 2017, but the kind where you track your consistency. Every time you mark a habit as done, your brain gets a mini burst of satisfaction. You start craving the win. The dopamine hits right when you open your habit tracker and see you're on day 15. Suddenly, you do not want to break the chain. Dopamine becomes your ally instead of your flaky motivational ex. Now, here is a tip that feels illegal but is not. Lower the barrier. The smaller the habit, the more likely dopamine will not get bored and wander off. If your habit is run 5 miles every day, dopamine is already hiding under the bed in fear. But if the habit is put on running shoes and step outside, dopamine is like, hey, I can get behind this. You can always go further once you start. This is the power of micro habits. They are like little sneaky ninjas that bypass your resistance and trick your brain into starting. And starting is the whole game. So here is your XQ certified reality check. Dopamine is not your enemy, but it is not your savior either. It is the guy in the corner hyping up the crowd, not the performer on stage. You build new habits by showing up even when you are not excited, especially when you are not excited. You use dopamine as a tool, not a crutch. And you realize that habit formation is not a wild, passionate romance. It is an awkward, slow dance with yourself, where you keep stepping on your own feet until one day you do not. So next time you think you have failed at building a new habit because you are not feeling motivated, remember, you were lied to. Dopamine was never meant to keep you going. It was just there to get you started. The rest? That is up to you and your willingness to be a little bored in the service of becoming awesome. And let me tell you, there is nothing sexier than consistency, except maybe a brain that understands its own nonsense. All right, fellow brain explorers, if this video cracked open your cranium in the best way possible, then hit that thumbs up button like it owes you money. Drop your weirdest habit attempts in the comments. We want to know if you ever tried waking up at 5 a.m. to meditate but fell asleep on the yoga mat. And if you want more fast, funny, genius-level content delivered at the speed of laughter, make sure you subscribe to XQ, Quick Funny Explanations, because your brain deserves to laugh while it learns. See you in the next mind-blowing, myth-busting episode. Stay curious and stay hilarious.